Hello there, we're going to do another MagJS tutorial. This is going to be a really cool example of seeing the different ways you can access Mag module objects and components, stateless or otherwise. Doing a very simple example of putting a component into a parent component app. Now we're actually going to use the boilerplate, the blank code pen boilerplate here. So the first thing we want to do is obviously fork the project. We don't want my overrides to take that over. Um, what else we're going to do? Okay, so we're probably going to use the add-ons here. So let me add the add-ons. The add-ons are not in here by default. Okay, so we're going to have the add-ons to show you some flexibility. And we're actually going to do the exercise here about making the link on the top appear into the component. So let's look at the component itself first. So some things to note. The component here is the app tag name, and the div is what we're putting those two dots in. Now the link is outside of the component, okay? And the exercise is about getting that link into the component. So first let's just do some static stuff and try to make that happen. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to create our link component equals mag, and we're going to make a container around it. Put a nice little div with a class of link. Okay, so we have our link container. Now we can access it through our JavaScript with putting link like this. And we want to put our link down over here. And we want it to, we want this object to be put into this div over there. So you can see that already happen. And we haven't really done anything. I mean, we literally, all we did was we created this object, which has that HTML container. And all we did is we put it in here. That's it. And you could already see MagJS did that for us. So this is one of the, intuitive, simple parts of MagJS that it just brings out of the box. Now, that's all fine and good, but what about mutating it, maybe making different versions of it, cloning, the different things you would do in real world, right? You have your template here, it's visible. Normally it would not be visible. You would either hide it, you would load it dynamically, or make the node in your JavaScript, however you would generate that node, as long as the node is accessible here, meaning you could actually literally pass the element, the JavaScript element here, or just a reference in the current document like we're doing here. So what are the other ways we can do with this is if we change this in ID, we have a lot more flexibility. For instance, we can create node mag module. Okay. Now, what are the difference between mag and mag module, right? Well, the first thing to note is probably by example. So let's say we wanted to pass some properties into this component. Now, the difference between mag module and mag in this case, there's nothing really obvious. So until we actually create more in our object to see what that is, and that's what we're going to do here. So this will not be stateless. This will be a stateful object. Normally your parent would be stateful and your children would be stateless, but in this case we're just doing the opposite. We're making the parent to be a simple dumb container while the link is an active module with state. Okay, so we have always our controller, which is our initializer. It receives some default props and it might set some initial state. And then our view is called on every change to the state. It's sort of a re-render call. Now you can access this dot state or this dot props in the view, or you can just use the first two arguments like this. Just shortcuts. And in controller, you would say this dot. Okay. So let's look back at our template and what is it we want to change exactly. So there's a couple of things that you might want to do. You might want to change the text. You might even want to change the class. So let's create a couple of classes, called like italic and bold, for instance. And I'm going to make some quick CSS here just for those. The italic equals, we say italic. Shocking, I know. And bold, of course, as we know, is going to be bold or 900. You could do it either way. Let's just say bold. So you see it, both templates are being affected currently, right? So let's, and there's a reason for that, right? The obvious reason is the classes they're in line, they're there already. So we want to make it dynamic. We want to maybe mutate those classes, change them in some way or another. So we have the add-ons, and the add-ons gives us some flexibility. For instance, we can say state A. Well, here, why don't we initialize our A link over here? This dot A equals like that. Okay, now we can play with it. So we can say stay dot state.a, whoops, a underscore class name. I mean, we could have defined our object down here. Don't let this fool you. This is just shorthand. We could easily define our object right here, like this, for instance. And we could say something like bold, false. Remove the bold. So notice how the second one's bold got removed here. Now we're using the class name add-on here, which allows you to put objects and things like that. And I just wanted to show you that flexibility here, but you can obviously, you don't have to use this add-on just for that. But we do have the add-on class file loaded, so we're gonna have it available. And that's why I wanted to show you this. But what we really want to do is we want to access the current class. So something like adding a class, okay? So why don't we do this? Why don't we get rid of the bold by default? And we're going to add it, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to get the current class. I'm going to say this dot a underscore class, like that. And then we're going to say underscore class equals current class. So we're getting, and then we're setting, okay? Now down here, we want to reset our class again, right? Where we have it already, we have it set here, but we want to basically only add the bold if it doesn't exist in there. So we'll say something like this: index of, if it's bold, or not bold, I should say. If it does not have bold, then we're going to add it. So state.a. Remember, this is not using add-ons. This is just saying, hey, I want to do this myself. Let's try this. See what happens here. Bold like that. Okay, so it doesn't look like it did anything. The console is not showing us anything. Why don't we see in the regular console? Oh, okay, so we have undefined object. So this is something to know, and this is the part of this exercise. You want to see what is happening here. So you first have to make sure that it actually exists. When it exists, then you can play with it a little bit. Okay, let's see if we have another error. Of undefined. There's a lot of this undefined. Line number 7, and here we're doing our index of. I think we have to do like this actually, underscore class. So if class exists, then we can check for the bold. Undefined, still, index of, state a class. Let's see what's happening here, because we have our a tag. It's over there. Okay, so here's something to note. It won't get your classes if it has only one single element, and there's a reason for that, because it normally will get this text in there. So normally when you grab an element that hasn't yet been defined, for instance like this, here, why don't we create an output so we can see what's going on here. We're going to put a little output tag here. This way we can output things dynamically. Okay, so if we get rid of all of our code, I just wanted to show you how MagJS works, kind of get some understanding on the inner working. So we're going to say this dot output. Okay, we're going to add something. We're going to say this dot a. Okay, so what it's showing you is showing you what a is. A is the text, and that's why we couldn't access the class, because it only has a text node. So there's no way we can say which one you want. Do you want the class or do you want this? Which one is it, right? So the only way to access the class currently is if there's multiple children underneath it. Okay, so here let's show what that looks like. So currently we're still getting this, right? But what if I say class? Let's see what happens. What is the output going to give us? So currently it's giving us nothing still. And why is that? Because we still only have one child. So if I add a span tag here, you see the class is already there. There's a reason for that. So it's a question of which accessor do you want? Do you want text? Do you want an object? One or the other, okay? And that's just currently how MagJS is. If you access the A tag, it assumes if there's only one tag, you want the text. Now, if you want the class, it has to have more than just a single value there. So with that being said, why don't we go back to our previous example. So now, notice how it's bold, okay? So here we're getting the current class before it's defined. Then once it is defined, we can do it this way, okay? Now you might say, well, what if I have a single element? Let's go back to here. What if I need, whatever, I need to have a single element, but I still want to access the class. Now, if you were to define this ahead of time, like this, will you be able to get it? And what do you think just happened there? You see, so in this case, it really doesn't matter. Here, let me show you what I mean. Output. So what do you think the output's going to be for current class? See, you're getting the italic here because your object's already been defined. So in this case, you can access the class even before it was defined because your object that exists. In this case, where the object does not exist, it doesn't know which one you want based on the current structure. So in the simplest way, in our example here, if you have this little text field and you don't have anything else, you just simply define it as an object first. Once you define it as an object, then MagJS can find the thing that you want within that object, such as an attribute. And then you could add it here, and then you can change it. So you're getting the HTML into your JavaScript and then changing the HTML again with your JavaScript. So it's kind of acting as a conduit without you having to actually do anything, which is very helpful. Okay, so that being said, we were able to change the class. Why don't we also change the text of the A tag? Let's say underscore text equal props.text. This way we can be more dynamic and have our component instance write something. So we're just going to change it slightly, just add a dot. So you can see the difference between this and this is with the dot. Oh, let's get rid of our output. See, this is really neat for just doing, obviously if your code doesn't error, you can do this. And you can just do output whatever you want. We'll get rid of that for now. Okay, so here you can see the template on top, which is visible. We could obviously hide that inline HTML if we wanted to. But the actual item is being put in here in our div. And what does that look like? Again, our output can be very handy here, but without having to do that, let's just look at it. Okay, so you can see it's adding a unique ID to it. Here's our output tag we're not really using. And then there's our new class that we added, as well as a new text to that field. Okay, so now let's go back here. What are the different ways to access a component? Now we see the parent here, but what about the link? What if we want to have multiple of them, right? So let's say we want link 1, maybe link 2. We want different links. We want to clone that component and have different links with different properties passed to it. So say link 1, let's create another link, link 2, two different versions. Okay, so what we're going to look at now is how MagJS and component instances are used, what you can do and what you can't do. So link 1, link 2, I'm going to put different text here as well. So as you can see here very clearly that only the second one is showing up. The second property is showing up. Okay, now let's look into the HTML and see exactly what's being outputted here. And you notice here that link 2 has it, while link 1 has nothing. So it's literally skipping over link 1, going right to link 2, our second one. So it's doing it in order. The reason for that is really quite simple. We are reusing the same instance. So MagJS doesn't know that this link is different than the first one versus the second one. Now the simplest way to make it know that difference is to use a key. Say this is key 1. And you really don't even need key 2, but you could if you had multiple. You could say this is key 1 and key 2. That's the simplest way to show a different instance or a clone of different properties of the same component. That's one way to do it. And that has its pluses and its minuses. It's reusing, but it doesn't necessarily rerun the state. So the state is the same, it's just recloning it with different properties. creating a simple clone. But what if you want different instances itself? So let me show you how you can do that. And there's multiple ways to do this in MagJS. So first off, the simplest way we saw with was the keys. There's another way too. You can say mag module like this. Now the difference between mag and mag module is how it uses the template. You notice here that the template disappeared. So with mag module, it affects the actual template. See? Here, link 2 is showing up. Now if we come back down here, what if I added a key here? Key 1 and key 2. So now you see again it's showing up. But unlike the first one, which reuses our template, this is not doing that. Okay, this is affecting the template in a way. Let's look at our template again. So this is where our template is. The div ID link. Right now it's empty. So it's affecting it because it doesn't have a text when you run it. And that's the major difference between the two. Mag module runs on the template while mag itself simply uses it as a clone. So mag here is cloning it, so it does not affect it. But when you do mag module, it does affect it. And since you haven't put any text in there, it doesn't have any text, and that's why you're not seeing it now physically. We don't have a default. We could add a default saying something like this, empty. But this way shows that it's running on the actual template. Mag module runs right away on the actual template, while mag simply reuses it. Does not affect it. Okay, so you saw the two different ways. You have mag and mag module with keys. Now what if you don't want to use a key for whatever reason? Let's show the same two, but with an add-on helper called MagCreate. Now MagCreate is from the add-ons, and simply all it does is instead of mag.module or mag itself, you do mag.create. Now let's see what happens in this case here. Now this is interesting, right? You see MagJS 1, 2, but also MagJS 2 on the top. So unlike mag, it didn't leave the template alone. It actually affected the template. But unlike mag module, which affected it with empty properties, this one created the last one with a set of properties. Okay, so let's look at the HTML here. And you can see something very interesting here. If you look at the link, see the last one got applied to it. And if we get rid of the last one, you'll see that the first one is the one being applied as well. Oops, let me just give it this guy here, like that. See? So it's whatever's being done last is being done to the template too, is the point. So it's mag create is very similar to mag module, is the point. It's basically running it the same. Now what if you don't want mag create to run like mag module? Now all you have to do is just wrap your component or your mag around like that, and then it uses create similar to mag without keys. So here you don't need keys and you have mag create, but you first have to define it as mag, and that way it tells it don't affect my initial template. Don't run the code on it as well. And that's the difference between just doing mag create or mag module versus mag itself with mag create or just mag by itself. So those are the two essential ways you can, well, 2 to 4 essential ways you can mutate your templates, have different instances, have different properties, and have unique ones associating with them. So I hope this was useful. Until next time, thanks very much.